What if I told you there was one simple change that any brand or retailer could make today that would dramatically improve consumers' trust and therefore sales? That simple change is to embrace transparency. As with most things, it's easy to say and much harder to do. But in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why and how now is the ideal time to embrace radical transparency. If that sounds good to you, grab a coffee and let's get into it. Crap, that's a little bit too much transparency. That's not going to work. Hang on. Oh, so much better. Hey, I'm Jason Retailgeek Goldberg. I'm the Chief Commerce Strategy Officer at the Publicis Groupe. So I get to work with a lot of the biggest brands and retailers in the world. This is the last of a 4-part series on the psychology of shopper marketing. In part 1, we talked about how important trust is to the commerce relationship. In part 2, we talked about earning that trust using social proof, primarily in the form of ratings and reviews. In part 3, we talked about absolute value and its potential to disrupt incumbent brands. And now, in part 4, we're going to bring it all home with a deep dive into transparency. Let's start with a quiz. Can anyone watching this video recognize the difference between these two barbecues? Yeah, I imagine a bunch of good guesses. The most observant amongst you will notice that the door on the two barbecues is different. One of the barbecues has a horizontal handle and a logo. The other one has a vertical handle with no logo. But it was a trick question, as you might have guessed, because that's not the important difference between these two grills. The important difference between these two grills is the SKU number. And the reason they have two different SKU numbers is because Lowe's and Home Depot both offer price match guarantees. So they've collaborated with Weber to make two virtually identical grills with simply a different door and a different model number so that Lowe's and Home Depot won't have to match each other on price. That sounds pretty oily when you hear about it, doesn't it? That brands and retailers have implemented practices that worked for them, but didn't necessarily work for the consumer, and they did them primarily because they felt like it was highly unlikely that the consumer would ever find out about them. When they launched these two grills, they didn't imagine that people would be watching talking heads on YouTube talking about this sort of thing. And there are thousands of examples like this on the internet. This is a bed frame that's sold by 4 popular online retailers. It's the same manufacturer, it's the exact same bed, but on these 4 websites, it has 4 different model numbers and 4 wildly different prices and different brands. Again, each retailer has bought a bed from the same manufacturer, positioned it totally differently in the marketplace, and positioned it as a brand that's exclusively available from them. So again, every one of these retailers is assuming you're never going to know that it's an identical bed you could get from the other 3 retailers. Let me give you a more painful example. Walmart has one of the most generous and effective price match guarantees in the industry. They used to have this wonderful program called Savings Catcher that I was a huge fan of. A couple of years ago, they discontinued it, but they've continued to have this really consumer-friendly price match guarantee. Can you guess what one retailer, Walmart.com, does not match prices with? The most common guess I get is Amazon, but that's actually wrong. Walmart absolutely matches prices with Amazon and every other major retailer that you might imagine. The dollar stores, the sporting goods retailers, Target. No, the one retailer that Walmart.com does not match prices with is Walmart. Yeah, they don't match prices with their in-store prices from Walmart. Why would that be? Oh, well, Jason, Walmart.com's price may be either higher or lower than local store prices. Prices may also vary between stores. Our local stores do not honor Walmart.com pricing, And you go, well, why is that? Well, this is because Walmart, like almost every other major national retailer in the United States, implement regional or even store level pricing. So the pricing in each store is based on the market conditions in that local market. Some stores are in a food desert. There's no alternative grocery stores, and Walmart can charge a little bit more for bananas in those markets and make a little higher margins. Some stores like Hawaii and Alaska, it's much more expensive to ship produce to, and so they might have higher prices there. And so since Walmart or Target or you name it might have a different price for every store, they can't match the website price to the store price because there's not a store price, there's potentially 4,000 store prices. And so the answer is, while Walmart's happy to match any competitor's price, they literally don't match their own price. And if that sounds sketchy to you, it's because it is sketchy. And Mr. Sam himself knew that it was sketchy, and he was not a fan of that kind of pricing variability, right? So this is a letter that Mr. Sam received from a disgruntled customer in October of 1972. And in this letter, this shopper says, hey, I bought a hobby horse at my local Walmart for $30, and I went to the Walmart across town, and it was for sale for $24. That's a difference of $5 or 20% of the price of this product. Can I trust any of the prices in my Walmart? Is it true that I have to go to 2 Walmarts and compare prices every time to make sure I'm getting the lower price? I sure would appreciate hearing from you. And in 1972, one of the wealthiest men in America, Sam Walton, wrote her back a letter. And in the letter, he said, man, I'm concerned about this too. This should never happen at Walmart. We're going to investigate it. And if the right price for that hobby horse is $25, we are going to send you $5 immediately. And thanks very much for being a Walmart customer, right? So Mr. Sam knew that having different prices in different stores was not a way to earn customers' trust back in 1972. But fast forward 50 years later, and it's a super common practice that Walmart uses along with most other retailers. A few retailers are starting to move to what we call universal pricing, but in most cases, retailers have different prices in different stores. And the fundamental reason that Home Depot and Lowe's can sell the same grill with a different model number, and all those bedding stores can sell the same bed with a different model name, and the same reason that Walmart can offer a different price on hobby horses in every store, are all based on the same premise. And it's a premise retailers have had for over 200 years. It's called the obfuscation principle. And essentially what this principle says is that a consumer is likely to know only what we tell them. So if we don't tell them that we have different prices in different stores, if we don't tell them that we ask the manufacturer to make an exclusive model number, if we don't tell them we source the bed from the same place as everyone else, they won't know. And 200 years ago, when this practice started, that was basically true. There was a huge information disparity between retailers and consumers. Consumers had very few sources of information other than the retailer to tell them about the product. But of course, that is not true today. This is no longer our consumer. Today, our consumer is Iron Man with Jarvis in his head. It's Brandon Stark that knows everything as the one-eyed raven. And most terrifying of all, it's the woman with a smartphone shopping in a Walmart store, right? These consumers know literally everything about the product, the market, the price, and the source of that product. So imagining that you're going to keep something secret from this consumer, imagining that this consumer isn't going to know something about your pricing or your business model, is never a safe bet, right? If you go to the App Store, there are thousands of apps dedicated to helping consumers match prices. Many of these apps have been downloaded millions of times. If you are an Amazon shopper, there are multiple plugins you can get for your browser that monitor the 5 million prices Amazon changes every day to tell you the best time of day to buy a particular product on Amazon. And if installing something in your browser or downloading an app to your phone is too much work for you, don't worry. Now the browsers come by default with price matching built into the browser. So this is the latest version of Microsoft's Edge browser, and it has native price matching built right into the browser. So consumers will always know exactly what prices are offered for every product they're buying. And if there's a promotion somewhere else for a product they're buying. In the case of a popular retailer like Target, there are hundreds of websites dedicated to informing consumers about mistakes in their promotion strategy or even mistakes in their store-level pricing strategy. There's a blog on the web that teaches Target shoppers how to buy a product at one Target store, drive 10 miles across town to another Target store that has that product at a higher price, and return it without a receipt for a profit. This is return arbitrage, right? So the Target guest is not an obfuscated consumer that only knows what Target tells her. The Target guest is a highly informed consumer that's plugged into a virtually limitless amount of information on the web. So in this environment, it no longer makes sense to implement any policy that's based on obfuscation. It doesn't make sense to have any strategy where you know something that you're hoping the consumer will never know. Because anything you know, consumers are ultimately going to know. Think about it. When you sat in the room and came up with that obfuscation strategy, someone in that room now works for a competitor. Someone in that room retired and started a blog or a YouTube channel or became popular on TikTok. It's virtually impossible that any strategy that any retailer has is going to stay secret. So what should we be doing in this environment? Well, we should be the ones disclosing all the secrets to the consumers. If the consumer's going to know anyway, we want to be the one to tell her because we want credit for being trustworthy. So right now is the perfect time to embrace a radical transparency policy before all of your less than optimal strategies get disclosed to the consumer by someone else, which would be very trust eroding. So think of a lot of the examples on the web of companies that are embracing this radical transparency. Today, when you shop for a dress on H&M, you can get detailed information about exactly where that product was manufactured and what processes went into the manufacturing of that product. When you go shopping at Target, Target will label all the products with a logo they invented for products that meet their special clean standards that don't have any objectionable ingredients that consumers have told Target that they're not interested in buying. So if you're a manufacturer that's using formaldehyde or some other cost-effective, convenient ingredient, you can expect that you are not going to get these popular badges that retailers are inventing to help consumers choose products on their shelf and their website. Sephora has a very similar feature for clean cosmetic products, so you can shop exclusively for those products that meet Sephora's clean standards. Unilever has recently announced that they're going to put the effective carbon footprint of every product for sale on the packaging of their products. This is a working group that has come up with a demo website teaching brands how to merchandise the sustainability of products. So this is an example of the best practices in fully transparent product detail pages that tell consumers about the sustainability of consumer packaged goods in a store. Let's think about pricing transparency for a minute. I mentioned that Amazon changes over 5 million prices a day through their dynamic pricing engine. So imagine that I have shopped for a product at Amazon and I found a product that I was interested in buying and, maybe it cost me $20 and I put it in my cart, and in the 5 or 10 or minutes or 3 hours between when I put it in my cart and I went to check out, the dynamic pricing engine on Amazon said that price should be $4 lower, right? So imagine if Amazon were to have a conversation or a meeting about the price of this product. If this is before Jeff Bezos retired in July, they might have had a S-team meeting. And in that S-team meeting, they may have said, hey, Jeff, great news. That YouTuber, Jason Goldberg, that says all those bad things about Amazon, well, he's buying something from us. And he put it in the cart at a high price our competitive algorithm said we should lower the price, but he put it in at the higher price. So if we just let him check out, we'll make $4 in pure incremental margin on Jason and stick it to the retail geek. That's awesome. High five, Jeff, right? And Jeff Bezos, who has to hate me for all the things I say about Amazon, would have said, no, we're not going to take the $4 in margin from Jason. We're going to inform Jason before he checks out that the price for the item in his cart is $4 lower, and we're going to lower the price. Because as annoying as Jason is, his lifetime value to us is much more important than the $4 in incremental margin on this one sale. So I want to be fully transparent with every customer, even with my dynamic pricing engine, even when it seems like there's money on the table, because I know that the lifetime value of earning that trust will be much higher than the short-term value of maximizing that individual sale. So as much as we might be annoyed by some of Amazon's tactics, they're a wildly transparent company when it comes to these kinds of pricing things. Another great example is Everlane. They take pricing transparency even a step further. If I'm shopping for a flowery jumpsuit on Everlane, they actually disclose the bill of materials for this product. This particular dress cost us $40 to make. We sell it for $80. J.Crew would sell it for $140. So they're giving you extreme transparency around the cost of goods. And when the price of zippers go up or down, or the market rate on cotton changes significantly, Everlane discloses that and changes their price. So they're earning a ton of trust with their consumer by having this proactive transparency on their website. Another great example is a daily deal site called meh.com. Some of you may not be familiar with it. It's founded by a guy named Matt Rutledge, and Matt was the founder of a very popular daily deal site called Woot.com that he sold to Amazon in 2010. And when he sold Woot to Amazon, he had a non-compete. When that non-compete ended, Matt launched a new daily deal site called Meh.com. And so they offer one product a day. I once asked Matt why he named the company Meh, and he said, meh, just another daily deal site, which I thought was funny at least. But so on a particular day, there might be a headphone for sale for $50. He gives you all the product information about why this is a great deal. But if you scroll down this product detail page, he tells you 49,000 people have seen this deal today. 3,400 of them thought it was an interesting deal. 271 of them bought it. So we made $15,000 on these headphones. Most of those people came from Washington, and our best source of traffic for this deal was Twitter, right? So he's giving you all the information that you would typically find in your Google Analytics or your website analytics. And in most companies, that data is treated as secret gold. The analytics team rarely will let the marketing team see that analytics data. And here Matt is sharing this inside baseball traffic data with all the consumers of his website. If Matt says something's a good deal, are you likely to trust him? Of course you are, because Matt is practicing extreme transparency. And this brings me to my last example at Patagonia. So again, like some other examples we've seen before, we can scroll down on the product detail page for a product, and we can see the ecological footprint of the product. We can see all the processes and materials that go into the product, where it was made. We can see the factory on a map. And Patagonia even gives us an annual report detailing how they're performing against their sustainability goals and achieving their various purpose-driven missions that they've disclosed to the public. So they have radical transparency about all of these corporate goals. And like a lot of companies, they've started to embrace used apparel. But unlike other companies, they actually put a button, a call to action, right on the product detail page, right below the add to bag, saying, do you want to look for a used one of these products? So they're not just sort of saying, hey, we'll sell used products, and if you go to this rarely trafficked alternative website, we'll show you some used version of Patagonia products. They're making it super easy for customers to choose to buy a previously owned version of the better sweater instead of a brand new version of the better sweater. And that is a perfect example of radical transparency. So once a year, when Patagonia runs this ad in national websites and magazines saying, don't buy this jacket. This is a super expensive jacket. No one needs a jacket this expensive. And by the way, you already have a great jacket. Bring it into Patagonia and we'll fix it. Or we'll trade it for another previously owned jacket that better suits your needs. We can save the earth by selling less jackets. You believe Patagonia, right? Do those of you that see those kinds of practices trust Patagonia? Of course you do. And that enables Patagonia to differentiate themselves from all the other outdoor apparel manufacturers that maybe sponsor someone with a sustainability mission or put a sustainability page on their website, but don't live the ethos of that sustainability and don't offer that transparency into the sustainability that a company like Patagonia is doing. So even when Patagonia is not perfect, rather than having them be discovered by someone else, they disclose the information themselves because they know that earning that trust is more valuable than any short-term benefit they can get from obfuscation. Clearly, the age of obfuscation is over due to digital disruption. Your secrets will be revealed. You might as well get credit for disclosing them. The trust you earn from doing so will be invaluable. And speaking of value, I hope this video was valuable to you. If you haven't watched parts 1 through 3, I highly recommend you go back and check them out. If you found these videos helpful, I would really appreciate it if you'd click that like button and even better yet, subscribe. That helps other people discover my content, which I really appreciate. In the highly unlikely event that you didn't just get enough of me, I have great news. There's more than 300 additional hours of me on the interweb. That's right. A much smarter friend of mine, Scott Wingo, and I, about 5 years ago, started a podcast. We didn't think anyone would listen to it, so we foolishly named it the Jason Scot Show. Even worse, Scott's parents spell his name wrong, so it's Scott with one T. But today, it's the highest rated e-commerce podcast on iTunes. So we talk about these kinds of trends and industry news for e-commerce and retail every week on the podcast. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I'd highly encourage you to check out the Jason Scot Show. Until next time, happy commercing.